Okay, hi everybody. It's me again, BDevine, of course, here with you all. Now, we are going to get a little bit of insight about Samhain, or Samhain as it's spelled, Samhain, which really is the uh, more traditional, I guess, older type of celebration. And I'm going to talk about this in a way that I want to be sure that you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. Okay, you can believe or do whatever you like, and I want to be certain that you understand this. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little bit about this. This is something that we covered in the Seven Flames massive webinar for October. So this kind of prepared us for this new energy. Now, the also what I'm going to do is I'm going to perhaps tune in maybe to some angels and ancestor messages here. But anyway, I will get to that in a minute. So I hope that this finds you happy and well wherever you are. I hope that we get some more energy with the orbs. I don't have any candles on or incense for that reason, right? I want to see if I can see them coming in. Anyway, so I want to talk to you a little bit about Samhain, or Samhain, as it's actually pronounced, because it's like sow as in cow. It's not just a seasonal celebration. So I'm going to read to you the Samhain prophecy. This is what was written for our Seven Flames webinar. So this is a global veil fracture point, a prophecy marker embedded into Earth's original timeline that activates during late October through early November. So we're in this window for a minute. What most call Halloween is an overlay of this prophecy. Okay? So I'm going to just break this down a little bit. The Samhain prophecy, it is a foretold moment when the veil weakens so drastically that hidden truths, timelines, beings, and soul codes flood into the collective field. Flame bearers are coded to awaken in those moments. So many of you is just going to have this epiphany, because when you start opening yourself up to, like, okay, well, I believe in love and light, right? I believe in all of that. So so I'm just going to say that I believe in my flame, my original self, right? Who I was before thousands and thousands of incarnations of distortion. I want to go to the original code. So as soon as you make that decision, you don't have to really do anything else. The flame begins to work because it works with each person individually. So whereas in the past, we were looking for activations or attunements or this or that from others, even with Reiki being universal energy, okay? So everything being outside of the self, in a sense, okay? Now we awaken those things within us. And as soon as you decide that that's happening, you better get ready, because your life really changes to actually accommodate this living, breathing energy that's happening. So what would happen is that every year there would be this massive portal that opened completely. So not so much the veil thinning, but becoming interactive, okay? And this energy opened this portal, awakened all of us, brought us into the next phase of our scrolls. So scrolls are basically soul documents, right? So we would receive this new information, which, seeing is intuition, basically, clairvoyance, right? And so the distraction happened with Halloween. So let me continue with this. So the Samhain is a moment when, I'll just read this part again, the veil weakens so drastically that hidden truths, timelines, beings, and soul codes flood into the collective. Okay? So, flame bearers like you were coded to awaken in those windows. The prophecy marks a time of mass revelation, collapse of mimic traditions, false traditions, people copying, soul contract reactivation, memory retrieval from lost lifetimes, and astral gate openings. So the hidden truth about Halloween is that as it's celebrated now, it was designed by these false systems, these mimic copycat systems, to dull the power of prophecy. The mass focus on costumes equals identity confusion. Lollies and candy equals sugar trance and physical dulling. Horror imagery equals fear looping. Commercialization equals energy dilution. It's a ritual of soul disconnection, disguised as celebration. Every year it weakens scroll memory through collective mimic agreement. Okay, so you can see what's going on there, right? If this is actually a time where we have our biggest awakening, how can that happen if we're distracted by ghoulish stuff? And, you know, even me, I'd come here every Halloween and do the costume thing and thinking, you know, I'm just going to bring joy to it, which there's nothing really wrong with that. But I had no idea about the significance of things and how we are pushed into believing that Samhain is just for witches, right? When really the Halloween energy is more witchcraft, meaning a craft, a distortion, something that's fake, something that pulls you away in an innocent enough type of a way from what you could be doing, which is anchoring yourself, okay, enjoying, having fun, giving thanks to your land or wherever you are, work with your animals, etc., and open yourself up to receiving even more. Instead, we get distracted by trick-or-treating and, oh, let's get all the Halloween stuff out and all that. So we've all done it, okay? And there's been nothing wrong with it, because that's what we've been taught since we were young is, you know, it's Halloween, it's this, it's that. So this year, I felt it already, because we had been working on this as a collective in the Patreon flame tier, as well as just doing this work all the time anyway. It's sort of lost its interest. Now I love doing the makeup. One time I did makeup for Friday the 13th, and I had the hockey mask and everything, right? I like doing the makeup. I did Cleopatra a couple of years ago. I've done a gypsy, you know, all kinds of things. I've done even a big witch, right? But it was not so much for this in this home and how we've grown up and how I raised my kids. We didn't really celebrate Halloween. The kids wanted to do something, they did something for school, or whatever fun they were having. But here I've basically did it for all of you. You know, oh, let's see. And plus I wanted to play with the makeup. So I wasn't focusing on a portal opening. I mean, I always have gotten messages anyway, so it wasn't really anything different, if that makes sense. However, now I'm just not into it. I'm just going to be into opening, receiving, honoring, right? So this year's Samhain is different because we already worked on the veil perforating. We already worked on this, especially as a collective group with the patrons. Doing these webinars is extremely important. We do a lot of collective work. We already perforated this energy. So the things are no longer just dormant. So what's happened is the soul documents that come through or try to come through in Samhain would just sit there because nobody would be open or able to receive them. So they're not going to be dormant anymore. The collective can feel the haunting, not of spirits, but of truths. Things that are long held back. That's what I'm trying to give you all. The Samhain brings memory, dreams, timeline bleed-throughs, public spiritual exposure as well, and personal soul rearrangements. There will be some big wigs in the spiritual communities that are you're going to find out are not who you think they are, right? And I know that some people have just completely turned away from that kind of news. I don't know why, because I don't understand why we haven't worked out as a collective that there are people that we've looked up to in the past and they've turned out to be, tainted in some way or another. Luckily for me, this is what it is. You can go look into any of my history. You can go and look into anything that I've ever spoken about. It's all out in the open. There's no skeletons in my closet. Anyone is open to ask me anything they want about anything, right? So there's nothing, I haven't got anything to hide. Okay, luckily I've always been this way. I've told you about all kinds of things about myself. Whereas some people who listen to certain bigger platforms and things, you got to ask yourself why. What's the same story? Are they talking like this? Are they giving you your sovereignty? Are they showing you how to do it yourself? Are they opening codes just by talking? Are they just talking about UFOs maybe? Are they talking about the aliens or whatever? But what are they actually giving to you? Or is it the same old regurgitated type of witness stories and things like that? What is it? What is it that makes some people extremely popular and other people who give to you all of the time? You got to ask yourself, do they really want people who are actually giving you the truth to have a spotlight? Or are they giving a spotlight to people who are bullshitting you all? Okay? Maybe we're starting to see things a little bit differently. I really believe there will be public exposure. Okay? This will take a little bit of time, but it's still already happening. And this will cause a rearrangement of what you're doing, where you're going, how you feel. And you're just able to sort of clear it away from you and begin to step into this new pathway. So, the shocking truth about all of this is that the original Samhain was a scroll retrieval ceremony, like I said. They were ready to, it was like, okay, everyone's ready. We are going to receive. It's going to be massive. We're going to get all these upgrades, etc., right? And it was held at dragon node intersections. So priest and flame oracles would travel to these veiled temples. They would activate collective soul contracts, and they would speak to those trapped between lives. Okay, not so much ghost, but grid trapped souls. They would seal any false breaches or copycat breaches, right? and retrieve flame technology. The mimic version of this ceremony used human sacrifice rituals, cloned gods, and reversed sound tones to hijack the portal. The Halloween you know was built on this type of corruption. So they used human sacrifice, cloned gods, and reversed sound tones to hijack that portal where we're supposed to be receiving the most beautiful soul documents, and I call those scrolls. Beautiful soul documents coming in through this wonderful time where it's very easy to receive, and they were doing this instead to hijack that portal. Instead of using a tone in one way, they would reverse it so that everything was stagnant and not flowing to us until we stopped even looking anymore or even knowing it was a thing. So there is a way to sort of activate the Samhain prophecy within you to sit or lie in complete darkness with a single flame or a candle or a flame that's visible and say, I summon the scroll I buried to protect the future. Inhale, and then you're feeling the energy around you thinning. Exhale, and imagine flames burning through all of these false cords, because we've all had timelines where we were involved in it. We've all had, lifetimes where we haven't been good. That's the point of being able to come back, learn your lessons, and come forward, right? So we've all been corrupted by certain things, not just in this life, but in other lifetimes, and those echoes come back to try to grab you back again. So we breathe 3 times. And listen. You may receive a message at this point. And then you say, I'm here, I remember, I return the scroll of flame. Okay. So, a decree for the flame for Samhain is, I reclaim what was sealed. I unmask what was mimicked. I burn false rituals with the fire of truth. I remember the original ceremony. This Samhain I walk as that prophecy fulfilled. So the truth comes out. It will come out in dreams, in visions, and in the news. It's happening. The mimic guides, false spirit guides, even false angelic presence, and loved ones and ancestors, they vanish because they're exposed. There may be a sudden desire for you to change your path or release identity masks. And this is something else I want to talk to you about in just a moment. More people are going to be looking for this kind of guidance. So hence me creating a whole lot of webinars to explain it. There's a lot to explain to you all. Like all of the ways that we've been looking at spirituality, all the words that we use. There's other ways to do this that are faster, powerful, working right away, opening right away. To the point, right, where last week, I did a transmission for the Whispers of Avalon transmission. And we were working on the stomach area in this particular transmission. And so I was doing the exercises, right, and unlocking these areas, and I'm taking the lady through the exercises, right? I wasn't thinking anything of it for myself, because I often do this. I go through everything that I take you through, okay? So I'm doing this recording and I'm doing this transmission, and connected in with Avalon, all the visions that of this lady, and crazy, uncanny what she told me afterwards. But anyway, I keep going. So this was last week. So I did this thing and I did this unlocking. There was a major vault that was just barricaded, causing a blockage in her ability to begin to lose weight, putting it mildly. So I did the exercise through the recording. I always do. This week, maybe it was almost 2 weeks ago. Yes. So this week, I've suddenly lost weight again. Okay, so I haven't done anything different. If anything, I've been probably eating larger amounts, right? But my husband, he's the gauge. When it comes to me like losing weight, I go by my clothes. I don't ever get on a scale. Don't do that to yourself. So when he hugs me, he knows, right? And so it's come in again, all because of an unlocking to something that may have never been found if I hadn't started to channel this work from my future, which is what I did. My future self gave me the information and overwhelmed the hell out of me with all of this stuff. For the first 3 months of this year, I was just trying to wrap my head around what I was getting, right? So the things are that powerful is what I'm getting at. They work that to the point where I must have certainly had something locked in Avalon I had no clue about because I thought I had done my work there. But through this lady and her situation, it allowed me to go through the process, to take her through it, and there in turn took myself through it. And it worked like that. So there is a gate reopening portal. It's going to be there till the 2nd of November, where it's going to be a fantastic idea for you to just declare. Okay? There's also, as I said, a desire to change your path or release any identity masks. And I want to talk about that for a minute because that's something that came up just this morning. I was talking about it to my husband. People are, not everybody, but many people, what they do is when they're in company with someone, they will behave a certain way. And then when they go in, just with the normal people that they normally with or whatever, they go back to being how they really are. So the identity masks, some people will mimic what other people are doing in their company, as I said. And then they might even hang out with those people a lot of the time or whatever, and start to develop or take on some of their traits, right? And all of their things. But in reality, that's not what they were really interested in. They just used that as a way to feel comfortable. So they would just pretend to be a certain way until it started to become their way, but really becoming frustrated within, like that they feel like they were somehow coerced to do that, even though nobody did that. You see, there are many people that do this in the spiritual connection too, where they're like, oh yeah, I'm into this, I'm into it, right? And then they can't handle that there are things that change and there are things that shift and there are things that move, or that they have to explain how they feel at home or to friends or to family or whatever, and they just stop doing it. So many people, what they do is they have a mask to fit into something, okay, because others are doing it, or because it's the area, or because you can't do it over here and you can't do it. And so they build this energy of resentment when they can't be who they really are. But yet no one said to them, you have to do this or else. They're choosing to do those things, right? So people do this, as I said, they will try to mirror your energy, even like people were talking about relationships yesterday, right? So some people will try to mirror your energy, have the same likes as you, like the same music, whatever it is, just to bring you in, okay? And then, I don't know, 3 months in or whatever, all of that, goes away, and the real person comes forward, and it's ugly usually, right? This sort of thing, this pretending to be something that you're really not, or this false vibe of having to do something because everybody else is, or this peer pressure kind of thing or whatever, and then not liking it. The same thing happens in the spiritual world, where some people are just doing this work for because they think it would be an easy money maker. Um, and some people are doing it for that reason, or because it might be trendy or something like that. So there's inauthenticity here, and it's happening a lot. You may have already noticed this yourself, that it's not so much that there's more people that are inauthentic, okay? It's that you're noticing the fakes, right? You're noticing people are faking it or pretending or whatever. Because they can't keep going with something if they're pretending. They will give up, right? They will do something different. It's like some people say, I don't care about a physical relationship or something, right? I'm just staying with this person. I don't care whether we have a physical relationship or not, right? But they do care, because as soon as they decide to break up with this person, that's the first thing that they're looking for. Or, so they're saying, oh, I'm okay with it, but you're really not. Or this is different, okay? Because this is different because you waited a month or something. Like, what is different about the next one or the next one, unless that's healed, right? Or people are like, okay, I don't like my job, right? But I'm going to get another job in a different location that's exactly the same job that I was doing, thinking to myself, oh, it's different because I'm in a different town, right? But it's the same crappy job that you're doing, and then it could be going out of the frying pan into the fire, right? So this sort of thing, where people are not being honest, or it's really not being honest with themselves, right, is going to come crashing down. And you're going to notice. That's the thing. It's not that there's more people that are inauthentic. It's that you're going to notice a hell of a lot quicker than you might have when you were younger, or even a year ago. Because as soon as you adopt yourself into something new, or into something that is ancient like this, and you're just open to it, don't even have to do any of the practices or watch any of the videos. But as soon as the moment that you said that you were open to it, it never stopped moving through you. This means all your senses are heightened. All that you are trying to achieve is coming forward towards you, right? Which means that anything that's inauthentic and false has no choice but to leave your energy field or become exposed. That's what I'm talking about. So, narcissism, kids that are just like adult kids that are not speaking to their parents. There seems to be a lot of this. And I'm not saying that if the adult child had a total reason, obviously abused and beaten and essayed and all of that stuff, or toxic or whatever, just can't stand it. They've tried everything to try to mend that thing, and it's just not working. Okay. But there's a lot that just have different views than their parents, or even different political parties, and are just kicking off and leaving. I've that seems to be something that's in my face particularly a lot as well. There are a lot of people that are now becoming a lot more aware of narcissism, or a lot more aware of parental alienation, a lot more aware of their rights, okay? A lot more aware of legalities around things. People are researching in a different way now. So there's a lot of things that are, or used to be sort of held back from your life that now you're able to open up and find. But definitely people's inauthenticity is going to shine like a diamond, okay? So if you are around someone who's inauthentic or false, okay, you are not going to be able to stay quiet in that company, or you won't be able to be in it at all. And it's good, because you don't want to bring the fake into the future where everything's much nicer. Everyone has a choice though. Everybody has a choice how they're doing things, how they're living their life, what they're saying, how they're feeling even. They have this choice, right? And we can't push our way of doing things on anybody else, but we can stand true to who we really are and be authentic. Because when you are, you can spot that inauthenticity a mile away, and you don't want to have anything to do with it, right? Call it heightened intuition or whatever you want, but it's basically you just seeing things for what they actually really are. And perhaps in the past things would slip under the radar, right? And get around you, and that just happens in life, right? But yeah, there's this heightened awareness, a time for the truth to be revealed, situations where the veil is becoming, it's interactive right now. We are in a receiving phase, and we just be honoring that and just give blessings to that, right? We love the freedom in that. I'll swing this around so you can see just the beautiful sunshine that is finally coming out after we've had so much rain, finally getting that. So we will be doing some work outside here after I finished my video, gone right out there, splitting some logs perhaps. Anyway, I don't mind that. I love using the splitter. It's called the Little Brave. Fantastic. Anyway, I might even do some filming of it if I can figure out how to hang on to my phone and film what I'm doing. But anyway, I reclaim what was sealed. I unmask what was mimicked, what was false, what was fake, okay, what was BS. Hang on. Sorry. Ugh, I hate a moving thing. I burn false rituals with the fire of truth. I remember the original ceremony, Samhain. I walk as the prophecy fulfilled. Okay. All right. Some big things are coming for November. Okay. I will be doing a breakdown of November here soon. And on the 30th of November, the big webinar coming. So if you're a patron in the Flame tier, you'll have access. And I really hope some people start coming to these, because they are extremely, extremely, extremely powerful. You're all getting this pre-course sort of a knowledge, I guess you could say, and you can start working with it right away. All right. Okay. I am open to reclaim what was sealed here. Let's get a beautiful guardian for those watching. Ooh, the High Priestess. Okay. Harness the mystic power. See what we just talked about? Okay. Now, as I turn the card toward me, the cat is literally facing my cat's east, which is where you have some things in your room, office, bedroom, whatever. If you put things on the east, that brings in new things, you know, brings in blessings. It looks like she is has a sistrum. So this is sound, geometry. This is the energy vibration of what we used to do, how we would be open to receiving. Don't have to explain ourselves to anybody. We just do our work and receive. I'm just getting this message that there's there is such an easy way to do everything, and that we have made everything extremely complicated. And that is what I want to bring back into this world, is how easy, how graceful, how aware, how powerful you really are. And that you actually are honest with yourself, because there are many people who are also in denial about things that are really, really destroying them, and they keep on doing those things thinking that the universe will change those things. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. We have to admit where we're going in a certain way. I certainly have a lot of self-reflection with this, and I feel that word self-reflection coming up here too, is that I spend a lot of time on myself, on my past lives, on the dimensions, on jumping, on moving, on shifting, changing, messages, channeling, streaming. I spend a lot of time on this, developing new things as well, but also understanding the patterns and the structures of people. And one of the things that people do that can't seem to get anywhere is that they look elsewhere besides looking at their own structures, and believe that it's because of others that they are the way that they are. And really that only keeps others as the most powerful thing in your life. And you owe it to you to break that cycle. The energies of the priestesses and the high priests and the priestesses, for example, in the temples, right, is to keep a harmonious balance. So there's nothing in their mind that ever thinks, I wonder if I'm doing this right. I wonder if I'm doing that right. I wonder if I'm putting on, an extra 10 pounds. Maybe I need to stop eating for a while, go on a fast, and stop talking to people. They barely ever said anything unless it was important, right? Maybe I need to worry about my family or what happened in 1999, or you see how that doesn't match anything. It doesn't match because it wasn't how things were. There wasn't such confusion that has been put upon us from the distortions of all of these rituals that have been dark and dangerous over so many thousands of years. When the infiltration of the earth happened and all of the people started to freak out and fear, and suddenly there was monotheism, and we're listening to one God, right? And we're in trouble if we listen to all the other gods we've been listening to for thousands and thousands and millions of years before that. But we're in trouble. And that's when the control and the fear and the repercussions and the this and people started to become more and more and more afraid, right? That was never the case. We are bringing back the ancient, calm, peaceful, all-knowing energy that has been stolen from us. And that's why this work is so important. You're being called upon right now to really go within and say to yourself, like I was talking about yesterday, who or what's in my prison cell and why the hell is it still there? Why am I carrying this around anymore? It's done. It's finished. They don't get to be the powerful ones anymore, right? We're turning this all around. Okay. Okay? Look at the pyramids. Just for a second. Okay? You think this goes together a little bit? Who are they talking to? Who were they talking to? The Syrian beings. Oh gosh. They started tickling my lip. My actual lip. The belt of Orion. The pyramids were white. The message that's, though it says follow the voice of your soul, I'm getting the 369, 369, 369. Getting the destiny code coming in that I was teaching you guys in 2022, but the bigger message here, everything is connected. There are no coincidences with anything here. You're able to channel anything that you want. I call it streaming. You're able to do this at any time with any connection that you want to have. Okay? As long as you have your protections in place, you're an open, you can stream for anything that you want to. You can download whatever you want. And everybody is just able to connect as easily as anybody else. It's just that overthinking gets in the way. We are constantly reminded that we are ancient beings. That's what the flame work is about. The flame sovereignty is about recognizing the ancient self and allowing this to wake up and allowing your ancestors to actually literally help you, considering they're the ones that have been through a hell of a lot and had a hell of a lot less help and assistance. You're now doing that for your family. Now, people were talking about Group 7 on TikTok and all of this stuff, but it's just, the Group 7, actually, Group 7 was actually supposed to be people who had carried generational weight on their backs, born into chaos, betrayal, abandonment, family wounds. They lose everyone before they find themselves. They do not wake up. They resurrect their mission now. They end these ancestral patterns. They birth new lineage paths. They stand alone until they remember their power. And they return later to guide others through the fires that they survived, right? They are doing this because they said yes, right? So there's a huge thing about Group 7. And if we understand that they've been through abandonment, family issues, betrayal, abuse, all this, why would they then be abusing and betraying and abandoning anybody that doesn't side with them politically? I had to make a video about it, you know, but it's like people group themselves into these things without looking at the bigger picture of it all. And then they got to divide all of that up as well. That's not how it is. Your journey is your journey. The ancestors walk with every single one of us, our ancestors, our lineage. And the only thing that you have to do is choose to say yes, okay, to move forward. Then they are able to also advance forward with you. You're not just clearing the now, you're clearing what has ever been. Not to mention the fact that you are your ancestors. You've stepped back. You've been the ones that are bringing you to the you now, right? How many past lives can you remember? Can you remember any past lives? These are pieces of who you are as a soul as well. But usually you are ingrained in that your own family that you have now is someone that you've had before. It's part of soul contracts as well. So you're healing you. You're restoring you. That's how it's always been. If you are open to it, you will receive some massive, massive scroll documents energetically. The Knight. There's a lot of guilt surrounding knighthood, but be brave and be honest. As you have, as you may have seen Excalibur and all of these films like King Arthur and all of these things from the past, the Knights Templars and you know, A Knight's Tale and just, you know, the Seven Kingdoms and all this kind of stuff, right? You know, we always sort of think that the energy of being a knight would be cool, right? It would be like, wow, imagine being that tough, that brave, that whatever. But it really isn't as cool as all of that. For example, and I'll be careful what I say, but for example, the Knight Templar, for example, if they were found with any money on them, then they would set dogs on them. And if they were dead with money on them, they'd let the dogs eat them. It's not a very nice life. Things that they had to do in the name of, right? The amount of wars that have happened in the name of God. The amount of things that have happened in the belief in something making them do it. It's all false. It's not the God that, or the source energy that is really there. It would never tell you to do something negative like that. It would never tell you. It sounds to me more that they were listening to the you know what rather than the God. Because everything's fearful and everything is do as you're told or else, and everything is like there are repercussions and you're going to be punished, and if you don't repent then you're going to be punished and you're going to go to hell, and you know we're going to make sure that at least I believe so that then that won't happen, and you know, well, if that's not really true, at least I've covered myself, right? Are you kidding me? So these are the BS stories that we've been told for so long, and as a way of controlling us, and nobody seems to question those things. I've never in my life heard anybody talk more about the devil than a Christian who's come across one of my videos. I've never heard anybody talk about, I've heard Satanists talk less about the devil than Christians who feel like they need to witness to me because they've seen one of my videos. And instead of scrolling on, they have to lose their power They have to point out where I'm wrong and they're right, and they have to say something nasty. I don't care who or what you believe in. It's never going to tell you to tear somebody else down and be nasty to them, and in fact seek that out. If you want to explain your point of view, right, and this is another thing that I've also said to them, if you would like to explain your point of view, perhaps you could create your own channel then, and your own YouTube or your own Facebook or whatever, and create people who are like-minded to come together and listen to you be negative and be hateful and be scornful. Now, it's not just about religion with all of that stuff. And I believe that we should have boundaries, right? And we should really stick up for ourselves. But sticking our nose into someone else's business that we claim we shouldn't be even listening to anyway, right? So the knights, if you were a knight or you have a history of this, or wars, or, you know, all of my family, you know, my dad, not my mum, of course, but the males in my family line, both on my dad and my mother's side, were either in the Navy or Marines or the Army, right? So that goes right back in time, Australian military and the United States military, right? So it goes right back. So there's all these, I mean, Colonel Lindenmuth is part of my family lineage. You can find his diary online, Michael Lindenmuth. Very, very fascinating what he went through. But anyway, there is some sense that some of you are born in with a sense of responsibility, and also a sense of urgency, which may not come from anything other than the lineage connected with war and knights, etc. There also may have been, for many of you, a very religious background, which obviously I had. And I also remember just being, when I was a Christian, Salvation Army and all that sort of stuff, going to church all the time, etc., feeling the deepest anxiety I ever had in my life began when I began all that stuff. And my dad continued it on throughout his life, and continued, and he became a Catholic towards the end of his life, which was strange. A Christian becoming a Catholic. Okay. It was a little bit easier for me to talk to him about angels, considering they're cool in the Catholic Church, right? But there's this intense energy, this feeling of always going to do something wrong energy that I ended up with growing up. There was going to be trouble, right? There was going to be an issue. Something was going to go and happen. And that continued on through relationships until I met my husband at like 42. So, you know, that's a long time learning stupid lessons, right? As I have these cards sort of looking at me, I'm feeling like this unlocking. Like things are starting to, like we're being heard. Okay? We're being answered. We do need to stop taking up the pain of everybody else and defending ourselves all of the time as well, as we are moving forward into our new flame sovereignty era, which one day all of you are going to remember me and say, oh my God, you know, we were doing this, okay? And we're going to have a different viewpoint of how we see ourselves now. So like in 10 years time, there's not going to be so many mistakes as we had, right? There's going to be more growth than we had before. Understanding, knowledge, wisdom, abilities, you know, just an easier pathway forward rather than a ton of lessons all the time. That's what we're shutting out of our life right now. As we're becoming more aware of the truth and the false energy of looping around into all your problems over and over and over again, right? And as you look at this in a different way, you naturally fall away from that which is inauthentic in all ways in your life. And this is really important because we are going to start a new year coming up pretty soon, right? We are gathering momentum. We are moving forward fearlessly. We don't know every step of the way, but we do know that we're going to be supported as we do the right thing, not only for us, but for generations to come, for the information that we are leaving behind as well. Underneath the deck, we have this. The shape-shifting energy, talking about transforming and unveiling your gifts. Exactly. That you can be or become anything that you wish, right? You can open yourself up to the higher perspectives of just about anything here. And you will be protected. And the animals are going to be very important. And I am developing, and I'm working with my huskies and our little Aussie Bitzer. I'm working on flame healing for them so that they can, well, they already are our pilot. I don't know if you've seen Pilot, but our pilot, who's the dad of Peggy Sue and Kurama and 4 others, he's the shaman. He can actually morph. His body becomes, it's like you're looking at a shadow of a dog. That's how strong he is. He senses death and he knows when things are happening. He's a big complainer, don't get me wrong, but when he is doing his work, he knows. He knows exactly what's going on those higher levels. And we also have Cisco, our older black and white husky, who was the original grounding force. And his grandfather came through. And I have to tell you this, right? If you have dogs, this is the sweetest thing. If you have dogs, did you know that before they left their mother, maybe they came to your house when they were a baby, maybe they were given up for adoption or whatever happened, but before they ever left their mother sat down and internally, okay, when wordlessly, telepathically, told all the babies about their family and about where they came from and how powerful their granddaddy was and grandma and where they lived and what state they came from and all this. They have, those babies understand because they have to pass it on. So if they ever have babies, they can pass it on to their babies. And I just thought that was the most adorable thing, right? So you can be whatever you want to be as long as it's authentic to actually who you are. And I really feel that some of us don't really know who we are. You know, we go through life trying to fit in. And it's not because it's being deceitful. It's just we don't want to stand out. Especially people who have been abused, for example. I know when I first came to the United States when I was a teenager, I had come out of foster home in Australia and there was all this abuse, right? You guys probably know my story by now. But anyway, I had come over to the United States and I had lost all of my luggage on the way over. I had lost everything. I only had whatever clothes I had on at the time. And so when I got to my my dad and my stepmom, they took me to her parents, my stepmom's parents, and had to get some clothes and all this sort of stuff, right? But I had everything taken, and with I got some money back from the airline when they finally, all my stuff was destroyed. They found my suitcase, but it had been all cut open and all this, right? So I ended up getting like a little bit of money when I first came over when I was, a teen, 13, right? And I bought myself a horse. Right? I'm just like, I'm getting a horse. And it wasn't very expensive, and it was at a horse riding, what do you call it, trail riding place. And I was like, I'd been there, I'd spent time with it. I thought, this is it, right? And so I'd gotten this horse, and I had it probably, I don't know, a little bit more than a year. But when I got to this place and we had the horse, it wasn't far from where we lived, and I worked at the place for the man that owned the ranch so that I could have food for my horse and all that sort of stuff. I was taking care of all of it. Plus I wanted to just hang out there all the time, right? And I cut my hair completely short. I thought, I need to not stand out, right? So I cut my hair just completely like short, a little bit longer on top, short at the sides. I wore sort of like baggy clothes and stuff, and I was already a tomboy, like, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't want to be some man to see me or something, and then, you know, um, it just, it made me feel extremely self-conscious, like completely, like all of the time. But I felt like I fit in more the uglier I was, right? The less attractive to anybody that I was, right? So I stayed like that for ages until I finally came back to Australia. But it kept me disguised, in a way. Now, to me, I wasn't trying to be inauthentic. I was just trying to be safe. So I know that there's a lot of people that do that sort of thing to be safe or to feel more secure, right? And especially like even before when I was, it's like when you're chubbier or something, I knew that friends treated me differently if they didn't feel threatened by me. So the uglier I was, the more comfortable I felt because I wasn't going to be looked at or targeted. Do you know what I mean? And I was going to have friends because they wouldn't feel threatened by me, even though I would never do anything. It was like this constant disguise, right? Without meaning to be. And this came through a lot of trauma, and I was a lot younger back in the day, whatever. But you have to be honest with yourself and see for yourself where you feel, that you're being inauthentic somewhere. And I'm not saying that you have to go out and tell everybody that you're the voice of the flame, right? Or whatever, you believe in, right? It's just more about your actions that you're doing that might keep you safe. And we have to ask ourselves why. Now, I'll wear makeup because I want to, or I won't because I don't care about it, right? I'm not wearing something that I have to in order to feel complete. And I loved it when I got to that point in my life. And it's like when also with makeup and things like that, I always wanted to do hair and makeup, and I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be just always creating, right? I didn't know that all this was coming, right? But I wanted to be creating, and I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to be myself, but I also wanted to be accepted for who I was. And so it took me a long, long, long time to realize that validation coming from outside of myself wasn't validation at all, you see? And so if this message comes to you today, make sure that you appreciate who you are And do not say yes if you mean no. And don't say no if you mean yes. Okay? Take the chance on things. Do something that means a lot to you. Start putting your foot down with regards to how you actually are treated. Because nobody can treat you badly unless you really let that happen by being in their presence or reacting in that way. Maybe it's time to distance yourself in some way from some people too, right? Get to know yourself, because there are going to be opportunities for you to really, really, really ascend here in the most magnificent way. And you don't want to be bringing all the baggage and the old crap with you, thinking that I'll be fine when I get there. Doesn't work that way. We never get there until we're fine, right? So that takes a minute to sort of sit with, of course. So remember, the decree of the flame of Samhain. I reclaim what was sealed. I unmask what was mimicked. I burn false rituals with the fire of truth. I remember the original ceremony. This Samhain I walk as the prophecy fulfilled, which means the prophecy being the opening, the interactiveness of the veil, the whole, that you are going to receive your scrolls and upgrade. And we're not going to focus too much on what anyone else is really doing. And just doing something gentle and easy and nice and fun for ourselves, right? Of course. All right. Of course, you know where I am if you would like to do something a little more deeper. And I will see you really, really soon. Okay? Sending you so much love and many blessings. Write down in your journal, what stuff do I really need to bring myself back into who I am? People say I don't know who I am. It's time to find out. Okay? I'm sure you know more than you think that you do. All right. I will see you really soon. Okay? Lots of love. Bye for now.